G'day guys, how you going? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean and today I'm going to be sharing with you this gaming PC that I put together for about $1,000 here in Australia. I'm going to be sharing with you all the parts that I use, the stores that I went and actually got the parts from, in case you want to maybe go out and buy them yourself, as well as the gaming performance in things like Apex Legends and Call of Duty Warzone at 1080p, 1440p and 4K as well, because this PC is actually quite impressive for the money. So if you guys enjoyed the content and you like this video, don't forget to chuck it a like, maybe consider subscribing, as we're going to be doing more content like this on the channel for sure. I'm thinking maybe the next video we do has a $1,500 budget, but I'd love to hear from you guys what kind of budget you think I should do next, and let's begin. Now, to give you guys some context and understanding about the reason why I've decided to start making these videos is that PC component prices have definitely stabilized, supply and demand is much better, and graphics card prices specifically have really dropped quite a lot. So you can actually go out and build yourself something like this gaming PC for $1,000 with all brand new parts and get something that's going to perform really well. So I really do think that this is a great time to be considering buying or upgrading your own PC. Now, I definitely set myself a bit of a challenge in terms of, I guess, the requirements I had for a PC at $1,000. But the main thing was I didn't want to build something that had to be upgraded pretty much straight away. You know, you throw one game on it and it basically, you know, you see the limits of the hardware straight away. So my requirements was a CPU with 6 cores, 12 threads. So we've got a bit of room there on the CPU side of things if you want to do some video editing work, or you know, you want to do a lot of multitasking. We want 16 gigabytes of RAM, preferably at 3200 megahertz, not 2400 megahertz. So we've got 16 gigabytes of RAM in there. We've got a SSD, a NVMe SSD, a 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD. No secondary storage, because I think that's actually a pretty decent amount of space considering how much we do now that is actually up in the cloud and how much we stream and re-download all the time. And a video card with 8 gigabytes of memory. So considering those requirements, we've actually got basically every single thing. Not saying basically, we do have every single thing. So the CPU that we're using is an AMD Ryzen 5500 CPU. So I think that's a 3.8 gigahertz base, 4.2 gigahertz boost. Comes with the stock cooler. We've got an ASRock B550 motherboard. So that's a micro ATX motherboard, but still a B550 chipset, which gives us access to PCIe Gen 4, as well as an NVMe M.2 SSD slot. So we've put in a crucial 500 gigabyte NVMe drive in there as well. We've got Corsair, 16 gigabytes of Corsair DDR4 memory at 3200 megahertz, and an AMD Radeon 6600 with 8 gigabytes of memory as well. So it's an all AMD system, and that graphic card will give us, you know, a couple HDMIs, a display port. It'll give us adaptive FreeSync, and because we're using an AMD CPU on a B550 chipset, with this graphic card, you also get access to the AMD Smart Access Memory technology, where basically it sort of opens up the lanes between the CPU and the GPU, and you actually get a bit of a boost in performance. So going this route at this budget, you actually do get an insane amount of performance for the price. Now, the power supply we've got in this PC is a Corsair 450 watt 80 plus bronze, and that's absolutely plenty. This system under full load, running full AIDA64 and Firmark, only chews around about 220 watts at absolute max load. So this unit is definitely going to be more than enough, and it might actually even give you a little bit of a buffer in case you want to upgrade your CPU to maybe like a 5600 or a 5800, or maybe upgrade your GPU. But 450 watts, you know, will definitely not be enough if you want to do like a 6800 XT or a 6900 XT graphic card. So just take that into consideration. The case is actually something as well that I was really excited about. This case, I believe, only costs about $55. It's the Antec DP31. It's a micro ATX case. It's got a basement for the power supply, keeps everything quite clean. It's actually got a glass panel that's got a little hinge, as you'll probably see in the B-roll. So a glass panel with a basement, all black. You can put a 240mm rad in the front or a 240mm rad in the top if you want to do that. So plenty of cooling options for this case. And you've actually got a USB 3 in the front, two USB 2s, separate microphone and headphone jack, and then you've got a little button so you can actually go ahead and cycle through some of the different colors on the front of the case as well. So you know what, for $55, I don't think you can ask really much more. This case has recently only sort of, I guess, come onto the market, and I think a lot of people are going to be building sort of similar budget PCs in a case like this. The case as well, by the way, did come with one fan pre-installed in the back as an exhaust. But two things that I've actually done, because I will be selling this computer on Facebook Marketplace once this is all done. And I think just for the buyer and for my own, you know, because I'm an enthusiast and I want something to be really nice and quiet and cool, is I've actually added a second fan at the back here. So the actual Antec fan that come pre-installed at the back, I've actually put the front as an intake for the GPU and just to provide some fresh air to the system. And then I've added another 120mm fan here at the back, but that's literally all I've done for cooling. Just added one fan and just moved the Antec one to the front. And then I actually got some power supply, cable extensions, some custom colors from eBay. I think this set was $35 and they give you the cable combs as well. So, you know, the actual aesthetics of the build, I think, is something to consider if you are going to buy it and then possibly sell it later or give it to someone. So I thought, you know what, just for the person who's going to buy this from me, they've got some nice purple cable extensions in there as well. And I think the system looks really nice. Now guys, I actually am really proud with how this PC turned out aesthetically. I think it actually looks really nice, and I know that definitely the 16-year-old me, if I was to get a PC like this, I would be absolutely wrapped. But I'd love to hear from you guys as well. What do you guys think? Do you like the aesthetics? What would you change? What would you add? Let me know in the comment section. But yeah, I am really proud with how this build has turned out. So now let's jump into some of the results that we got from testing 4 different games at 3 different resolutions, as well as the temperatures and power consumption. The 4 games that we tested was Grand Theft Auto 5, a bit of an old game, but it's actually been updated multiple times and it is quite demanding on the CPU. We've also got Call of Duty Warzone, Apex Legends, and CSGO. For those of you who are playing, you know, some intense competitive shooters, I think, you know, CSGO is one that's been around for a while now. Definitely shows the limits of the CPU. It's really CPU dependent, but that will also translate quite well to a game like Valorant. So jumping into GTA 5, the first game that we benchmarked at 1080p, the average frame rate was 141 frames a second, at 1440p was 133 frames per second, and at 4K was 65.8 frames a second. Now, with all of these games, I should say as well that we benchmarked everything at normal settings. So these are medium or normal in the game settings. So if you want to get more or less FPS, you can play around with those toggles, but I decided to do medium and normal for pretty much all of the games, and 2 times filtering for anisotropic filtering. So that's the results for GTA 5. Jumping over to Call of Duty Warzone, you can see here we were getting 162.1 at 1080p, which is insane, 107.8 frames a second at 1440p, and at 4K we were still getting a respectable 52.7 frames a second. These were all the average frame rates. Jumping over to Apex Legends, at 1080p we're getting 188 frames a second, 1440p 116 frames a second, and 4K resolution about 59.3 frames a second. So basically 60 FPS at 4K on Warzone and Apex on normal settings is quite impressive. But even more impressive, we're getting over 144 frames on 1080p at Apex Legends and Call of Duty Warzone. So if you are wanting to play some competitive shooters at 1080p or even 1440p, you're going to be absolutely set with this PC. For CSGO at 1080p, we were getting 286.9 frames a second, and that was the average. 1440p, basically the same, 290.6 frames a second. So we were really limited in terms of how much CPU frequency, CPU horsepower we had. The GPU was sort of waiting on the CPU a little bit. But at 4K, we were still getting 205 frames a second, which is just insane. I mean, I know that CSGO is not a really hard game to run, but you really do want to have as high of a frame rate as you can. This system would definitely benefit if we did have maybe a 5800X CPU in there to get those frame rates even higher. But I think when you consider the budget and the all-round performance of this system, it's actually done really, really well. Now, when it comes to temperatures, the GPU and CPU, for pretty much every single game that I was playing, the GPU was hovering around about the 60-degree mark Celsius, and the CPU, the hottest I ever saw it get was about 73, 74 degrees Celsius, which is perfectly fine when you consider it's a stock cooler in a small system with only 2 other fans, you know, providing it fresh air. When we were under full load in like AIDA64, which is a completely synthetic load, the CPU definitely got up to around about 85. Even in prime 95, we were getting up to about 95 degrees Celsius. But again, these are completely synthetic benchmarks, which are going to really stress the CPU in a worst case scenario, and you're never going to really encounter that kind of synthetic performance, or synthetic testing in actually a real world scenario. It's going to be pretty rare that you actually do something that's going to really push those temperatures that high. But even said, when you get to those sort of temperatures, the clock speeds just slow down a little bit. The system stayed really quiet all throughout, wasn't noisy at all, and I think the power consumption part was quite impressive, only consuming a maximum of around about 220 watts, which is just insane when I compare it to my own system with a 5900X. That CPU alone can easily chew about 200 watts. So really, really impressive results from this little PC. So guys, what do you think of this little gaming PC? I've called it the purple nugget because of the purple sleeves and how small and compact it is. It's going to be really hard for me to actually list this computer on Facebook and sell it to someone, but I know that the person who does buy it is going to get an absolutely awesome little gaming PC for, you know, 1080p or 1440p gaming. But again, I do want to hear from you guys. If you have any comments or questions about the parts that I use, please let me know. Everything is listed in the description, but in case I miss something, please just drop me a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Get subscribed. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're going to be doing more of these builds throughout the year. What should the next budget be? I'm thinking 1500. Maybe it should be 1250. I don't know. Prices are changing all the time, and you're just going to get better and better value. So until next one, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.